How we doing, ladies and gentlemen? How we doing? We live. We live breaking down the upcoming snowstorm. Let's do it. How we doing, everybody? How we doing? That's my heart. Damn. Twisted, how we doing? How we doing, everybody? Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's get my pen tool cooking here. There's my pen. There we go. No. There we go. All right, doing the Weather Bell Premium ad, I see. Ladies and gentlemen, how are we doing? We have a snowstorm to track here, so we need to break this down, obviously. Ike, I hope you're having a great night as well. We have a lot to cover here, a lot to cover. Hopefully you enjoyed the intro. Even if you're not a rap fan, a good hype up is always good. A little non-copyright Uzi Vert right there for those of you that know that. But yeah, so actually I have a threat map too, and I'll live tweet that. I will start. I have a threat map that I made for y'all, so we can put that in. We can put that in there as well. Please tell. I can't guarantee you every way. Yeah, don't look too much into models right now. Listen, I'm telling you, I have my thoughts. Listen, I'm not usually as confident as I am when we have this much model uncertainty. But I really like where I really like how I've started from the beginning of the storm, and I feel like I'm doing a good job staying ahead of the model changes and the back and forth. So I'm not too. So this one here, oh, I thought I added. Where is it? Where is it? I'm a find you. No, that's not it. Where are you at? Got a bunch of different thumbnails going here. This one. What are we doing? Yeah, I'm just finding my not the thumbnail, but the where did I put that thing? $117. That, I mean, that's the idea. I thought I added something else to it. Maybe I didn't. And that's fine. I'll just do it. I added something else to it, but This is the idea. Okay. I'm deciding to not bet against the Euro AI in the medium range. Euro AI has been locked in for this for a minute now, for sure. Um, Threat map. So you can kind of start to follow the thoughts along here as I type it out. Threat map. Is that what I wanted? Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Idea for accumulating and plowable snowfall. General area to watch. If I can type area to watch for accumulating and plowable snowfall. Sunday to Monday. All right, just had to get the little bit of a mix, a little new of a color wave. Had to update the area a little bit too, but pretty good. I was able to hold the same threat map for 2 days straight in a row, so I was happy about that. And kind of changed it. John, my man, how we doing? Yes, you are. You're back just in time. Yes, there is maybe this. This is a good general pattern, so we're going to talk about it. Here, I'm gonna actually bring my Twitter back up again because a lot of my thoughts are really in my tweets. So if you've been following today, whether or not you're on YouTube or on X, regardless, again, hey, if you're on YouTube, hit that like, baby, hit that like, appreciate it, very very much, y'all. So, uh, but yes, I think there's a pretty good shot here that many make out still pretty well. So we have all of these. So here's where we were at yesterday. I was like, I feel like the GFS was a good middle ground between the Euro and the Canadian. And the same thoughts still, excuse me, still hold. The same thoughts still hold very much in place. And I'm gonna continue to advertise that idea of like a GFS. I feel like the GFS has a good middle ground, and it's also handling the synopsis very well, or sorry, the analysis very well. Or sorry, the analysis I noticed it's handling the storm pretty well. I'm just glazing through some of my thoughts here. Um, and well, yeah. So there again, so last night, that's what we said. I said last night, I feel like it was a good middle ground we had with the GFS, and I continue to remain kind of close to that. There's a good opportunity here for a significant snowstorm. Not just, I thought originally the ceiling would be a minor, maybe a moderate at most, maybe a moderate at the very most. There's a good shot, not only a moderate, but there could be some swaths locally. I've kind of talked myself into it. I've tried to be skeptical. I try to be skeptical whenever we start advertising. Maybe some of those higher end totals you see sometimes, because the snowfall maps. I'm telling you guys, those surface maps, you got to get away from them. Got to get away from them on all these models. 700, 500. They're telling the clues. They're telling the clues. It just depends on what you're looking for here. So in here on the GFS is actually handling 500 the best right, or just it's just handling the storm the best right now so far. We'll see what the OZ Euro does. It'll come out here in the next um, 20-30 minutes, but and we'll break that down live on stream too. But here, this storm, right? We have this was as of OZ, so this was OZ analysis here, and I compared OZ analysis here at 500. One thing I noticed is GFS was doing a little bit better in terms of handling the progression of the trough. The Euro was, I think, is a little bit too broad based on the analysis, and also and the GFS is slightly sharper, and that's more accurate based on depiction and also just matching up the height lines relative to where we're at. The GFS is doing a little bit better. The Canadian doing slightly better than the Euro, but not. But the Euro is struggling the most right now based on current analysis. So it's not incredibly hard. You have to do a lot of good amount of work to be able to, go in depth here and look at all the little things. Yep, we'll talk about it. Keep listing all your places. I promise, we'll break down in depth all the specific nuances, but general housekeeping first, obviously important. It's not just housekeeping; it's important. It's very important. This stuff here, and the GFS being the closest, it also happens to be the middle ground, coincidentally, which I just tweeted, continues to be at OZ, and we'll look at that in a second. And that remains closest to my thoughts. To where we progress here, where, yeah, and again, also one thing I noticed is that, what this does also, I think the GFS is also handling the interaction with the boundary a little bit better, surprisingly the cyclogenesis process with the boundary, the GFS, I would have not have had it doing better. But I was like, I think somewhere maybe we could be between the GFS and the Euro, maybe ending up with slight weight on the Canadian. But after today, it's pretty clear that the GFS, at least so far, for the moment at least, is handling this pretty well. Now, the surface maps or whatever they are, I don't care too much. Yeah, going to the Eagles game on Sunday. Wow. Yeah. Um, and so that's kind of the reason why I think the GFS is probably close. Again, don't take it verbatim, but it's closest to the accurate. I still think GFS probably will struggle with some of those with the cyclogenesis process just a little bit. And some of those in-depth, high res features. So some of those soundings I put out, don't take them too just a general idea for general far out still, kind of, and perfect time range for soundings to be kind of general still. So don't go too far, but they were impressive, some of those soundings here. And the reason why you see the Euro is a little bit broader and it's interacting with the trough less. So we can go right into it. So the Euro, the reason why you see what you see, if you're curious, all right, I see all these models, the surface maps, they kind of look all over the place. Why is that the case, Brady? Why are we seeing these models all over the place? It feels like on the surface. They're not as far off as you think, all of these. And the Euro is very close. And here at 18Z, the Euro is so close. It's a little too broad with the trough, and it's not able to interact with the boundary here. This boundary that sets up, there is a surface low that sets up here. And one thing that was also evident is I was suspecting the Euro maybe putting too much convection into the boundary out ahead out here and trying to amplify this versus spreading it out more and allowing this to interact better potentially. Here's our trough here at 500. And so I was suspecting that, and it's partially true, I believe. But in one thing that was evident, the GFS was too weak with this, maybe a little bit too weak, possibly. It's just the run-to-run change at OZ was it strengthened this. It strengthened this a little bit more. So we had a little bit less interaction with the boundary, just a little bit more delayed, just the slightest bit. And the way it held still the consistency of the model, it was impressive. So it's like that was another one leg up potentially to the GFS as well. But the Euro is so freaking close, man. It's so close. It's just not able to get enough convection to wrap at the head of the upper level low here. This is your upper level low out ahead here at 500. And so we need to see on the Euro, not on others, but the Euro, this wrap in. We need to see this slide a little bit closer to our boundary here, be able to wrap and slide up and amplify the upper level low more. And that's why you see lesser totals in a less significant event on the Euro, even though the rain snow line is really not that far off from the GFS still. It's, it's just what you would do here is you wouldn't really move the rain. You would move it some, but you wouldn't move it as much as you think, in my opinion, unless it adds something else. But if you were just able to wrap, if you're able to, heavier rates will collapse the rain snow lines thing. People that are worried about mixing may be able to get dynamic cooling to work in your favor here. So you may not have to be so concerned. For some people, if you're thumping along the rain snow line, dynamic cooling definitely may be able to help you win out here potentially. So if you are worried about mixing, we'll have to get closer to really nail down the rain snow line. Um, but I wouldn't worry overall too much quite yet, at least. Now, with the Canadian, before we break down the GFS, it came from 12Z. It came back, and you see the RGM. It's the same through 84. Higher resolution is the Canadian through 84 models. It's the same, simulates the same data. It's the same model, except it's the RGM. It's a 10-kilometer high resolution model. So it's going to do just some little things differently, but it's generally it will always be pretty much the same inside 84 hours. And the RGM doesn't go any farther out than 84 hours. Hell of a run, by the way, the Canadian, if you play this out. So there's more time frames to watch, by the way, after this. So we're going to be doing more live streams after the storm, likely, potentially as well. And also tomorrow, I will be on another YouTube channel, and I will tweet it out so you guys can come, and I'll be breaking this down. I'll have my live stream tomorrow night, by the way, and I will be on someone else's live stream, someone pretty notable here, especially on YouTube. And on X, you might have heard of him too. He is actually he's from Carolinas. He's from the Carolinas. So we will actually be doing a collaboration live stream. So you'll be able to get a little bit more exposure on YouTube as well. But you'll be able to see some of my thoughts there as well tomorrow, if you're curious. But we will have the grand old live stream obviously on tomorrow night around the same time as well. But on the Canadian, what we have here is it's a little bit broader with the trop, but what it's doing is it's not allowed the position of the upper level low is farther west here, so it's amplifying everything you're seeing is happening like the GFS, but a little bit further west. So it's still interacting with the boundary much more than the Euro, but it's further west. And so what you're seeing is that though that rain snow line is going to be able to not crash as far, and those totals get exclusively northwest of I-95. They're exclusively plowable snowfall is northwest of I-95. Yeah, shut up, John. You're not getting in your backyard snow totals. Are you kidding me? I'm just kidding. So with the Canadian, that's why you see what you see. Gorgeous look. Massive 700 millibar look here. I disagree with it a little bit, honestly, on the Canadian, though. I don't think you would see the 7. I think it's, you see how it comes together, almost skips over, New York City, southern New England a lot, almost. I think it's just in general, it's a little bit too far interior. And it's the evolution, I think, is just happening just a little bit too far northwest, in my opinion. I'm not ruling it out, though. I've said it for days. You guys kind of, some of you were like, Brady, come on. Really? You think mixing is more? I was like, hey, I think the Canadian, you got to keep an eye on it. So don't laugh at the Canadian quite yet. Even though I think it is a little too far northwest, don't completely laugh at it. If you do fail mode, for a lot of people, it will be mixing over not seeing the storm hit. I'm telling you. It will be mixing. I'm telling you. That would be your concern. For especially places along I-95, that would be your concern over the storm missing. So I think that's somewhat obvious, but I just want to be clear with that. That same thought remains in place. Then with the GFS, what you do here at 500 is the evolution happens. You see it's a little bit further south and east. It gets going. And so what you're able to do here is you amplify that upper level low beautifully. Look at that. Look at this look here. This is a gorgeous look. Get your almost mini snake tongue here, a little bit progressive. So a lot of it gets pushed out east because remember, you're pressing down. You can only go so far northwest with this. You can only go so far northwest. The trend in the Atlantic for this storm has stopped. For this storm, the Atlantic ridge has halted, kind of. We haven't seen as much movement westward with that today, which is obviously positive. Because if you did so much, then we'd start worrying about a little bit mixing a little bit too much. But this is your cold air, your TPV. Look at your height lines here, man. It's 498, even lower, 492 height line. This is cold, very cold Arctic air. It is going to be a freaking icebox, guys, on the backside of this. It is going to be very, very freaking cold on the backside. And again, this is part of what's making our storm system potentially dynamic. And I think locally, some totals could be very impressive, depending on where the best band/banding sets up. There could be some very like this is one of those storms where you look back and be like, man, man, I can't believe that happened. Like some of those surprising totals. Like it could be like the more I look at this, it could be one of those. There's a lot to suggest that snow growth will be, and it would be more for the interior, the highest totals. The highest ceiling is for the interior, hands down. It's not close. I'm sorry. It is absolutely northwest of I-95, I should say. And like it is very like eight out of 10 times I would pick the interior to have the chance for the highest totals. But that doesn't mean you're not still not going to get maybe close to the highest or still really good totals. Some for some spots closer to 95. But my point is, this cold Arctic air is pressing down, and we're going to talk more about that evolution in a second and why some of the specifics of this storm are going to be pretty interesting. So this presses down this cold air, but you have to remember this boundary stalled out here along, and you're going to amplify this. You're going to pull and wrap convection in. So it'll almost be a little bit of a double barrel, just a little bit, because you're technically having this surface low out here, but it's weakened. Yeah, it's diminished in intensity, and this is your strong upper level low. Your attention, the attention of where you're going to amplify the storm along the boundary, this gets forced into this storm. So a little bit of this slightly progressive flow here, where you have this boundary strung out along here, and the storm pressing is what prevents this from going too far interior. But what prevents this from being a little bit more Euro-like, in my opinion, in terms of the progressiveness, not necessarily the location of the upper level low, but the inability to wrap up, is the Atlantic ridging you have present. Take a look here again at 500. Looking at 500 millibars. For those who are confused, the upper levels of the atmosphere. This Atlantic ridge here continues to remain steadfast. We've seen it today. You can play it through, and you can notice. Look, holding steady today. See that no real trend? Holding steady. Just holding steady today. The northern part of our Atlantic ridge, more so. We've seen this amplify a little bit the southwest part of our Atlantic ridge, but that's influenced the next storm as well. But this is holding steady right here. And what this does, this ridging, it works as your steering, right? Your high pressures, your ridges work as your steering for the storm, and here's your troughing, right? And this forces moisture to get, it's not going to want to go force out. And now you have this upper level low that's going, you're going to want to wrap this, it's going to want to wrap convection towards the strongest system here up to this upper level low. It's a negatively tilted trough, and it's going to want to wrap in. So even though I've heard some things, it's too progressive for like a significant storm, like the idea of that, you got to get it like kind of out of your head a little bit, that it's going to be at least in my opinion. Yeah, I could be completely wrong. It's possible, but these are my thoughts. These are my thoughts and kind of where I stand. And so I don't think the flow is too progressive to get a pretty significant snowstorm. Now we're not talking some massive 18 to 24 blockbuster, obviously. So it depends on your definition and semantics of a blockbuster and all that fun stuff. I don't know. I'm not, I wouldn't say this is an all out blockbuster, but I wouldn't say this is maybe as weak as some people think totals will be. Initially, like 3 or 4 days ago, I was like, this was nothing. This was nothing. I got a little flack, but I hold steady. I think I was like general 4 to 8 plus is definitely possible. So, I was glad I was able to at least see through the tea leaves a little bit. For all the times I've messed up before, gotta hit something right, and luckily did something right with the storm. But I think it's more now, like I alluded to last night. I was like, all right, maybe now we're talking maybe more 6 to 12 plus, and for some of this, and that kind of remains now my idea of a general 4 to 8 swath across the large region of the area, and within that potentially like an 8 to 14, even maybe some swaths, like swaths of 6 to 12 with some totals of 8 to 14 inches potentially within that. You can't underestimate in the interior how good ratios are going to be, especially Berkshires, Hudson Valley, Northeast PA, New Hampshire, Maine, northwest of I-95, Massachusetts, northwest Connecticut, northeast Connecticut, even maybe northern Rhode Island. Maybe I don't think ratios will be quite as good there, but some of like that general idea, and I can, bring it back to the threat map. And I'm gonna explain. Some of you heard, oh, double. You're thinking more than double digits here, maybe. You gotta go. It comes back to the synoptic meteorology here. Is how I'm just. I know it sounds like, oh, it is. Brady, it's obviously meteorology. Like, what's your point here? It's like, no. Like, I'm saying, it just comes down to the basic fundamentals. Like, you know how a lot of times you're like Belichick. It sounds like so stupid and dumbed down, but like, no, it's like the process. You got to get very process oriented, get away from all the BS in the models, and stick to what the basic fundamentals are. And if you can stick to that process consistently, if you're good enough, then you'll be able to be effective. That's kind of the idea. And so this is what I'm doing. I maybe could have even extended this a little bit further out, maybe just because ratios are going to be so freaking good, like so freaking good. And you might even get like initially this band like sets up and then kind of collapses eastward. I think there's an opportunity for a deformation band here where you can see the banding like set up way interior in the beginning and then starts to fill in here as it starts to pull eastward and intensify. Like you'll see banding come and then form. You'll see banding like the main band like out here, and then new band like new bands will help form and consolidate to the main band that will continue to shift east until it kind of pull out northeast. And some of those ratios, man, are going to be so freaking fantastic out there across Pennsylvania, New York, North Jersey, Massachusetts, Northern Connecticut, New Hampshire, Southern Vermont. All of Vermont ratios will be fantastic. Maine, you're going to have really, especially under those best dynamics. Like, do not underestimate the snow growth there. Do not underestimate that. That's what I'm talking about when I say when you look back and you're like, whoa, I can't believe that storm did that. Like some of those totals. Like this is one of those when you're like whoa, like there was no snowfall map that showed that. Now I know that comes off maybe as a little bit of a hot take, but um, I just like I see it. Like I can already see it happening right now. We're looking back and we're like, the heck happened? There was no model that showed that showed that, or maybe there was, but like realistically, the general idea of models, there was like that it did not seem like that was actually possible. Like it would be probably more local some of those totals, but um, don't underestimate some of the banding potential here. With this system, it's going to be very very prominent, and it like and it's like it sounds a little code and like cryptic a little bit, but I just want to relay that general idea because we're still like a couple days away here, and I don't want to explicitly like forecast something I don't need to quite yet. And so that's why I kind of, I'm just trying to ingrain it now so that the possibility exists depending on how we play it out here, and kind of why I think that is. I think there's going to be some. This is going to be heavy banding in this storm. This is going to be in and out quick, but it's going to be very heavy banding. First of all, the upper level low. This is a strong upper level low. This is a very strong upper level low here. This is a juiced vort to work with, man. That's a solid look. That is a very solid look, right? You would see a long, and you can follow 500 pretty much for the most part, where your heaviest snow is going to be. And you just look inside the upper level low here on these runs, and you can find it here on 500. And as you slide, you continue, you can see the upper level low look. All right, that's where your heaviest snow will be. All right, under this, that is where you'll find it, and it's going to be a strong upper level low, and we're going to have a great thermal clash here, a great thermal clash. So what I mean by that is if you look here at, we go to global and we go to United States and we go to temperatures. I've been using the anomaly image because it's worked fantastic. Look at the gradient we create here. This is winter weather 101. Winter weather 101. Very cold. Look at this cold, extremely cold Arctic air. And this is your ridging out here in the Atlantic. moisture is to forced up to go into your upper level low and meet cold, cold Arctic air. So you're going to create really good frontogenesis, um, really good mid-level dynamics at 700 that are going to set up an impactful, allow a strong band to set up here. And you'll see it consolidate too. It could be that band where it sets up, it could be big potentially, but those heaviest totals in that band, it will consolidate if I had to guess, because that cold air is going to press on this system. So wherever it sets up, it's going to press, and then you'll see banding out ahead of it is how it will work. Is banding will get out ahead, and you'll continue to see it until so it will meet where that band. It will continue to try to meet where that band sets up. So even if you're just east of where the heaviest of the band sets up, likely or banding, depending on how developed it ends up getting, is you'll look for those. You'll see those waves shoot up that banding, and it will go, man, it will be flying fast. And you'll just continue to get out of in and out of moderate to heavy snow bands, and you'll stack up or tons of snowfall. Relative to the event, and so you'll still be able to get 6+ inches of snow, 6 to 10 inches of snowfall still at least, even though you may not get like the absolute jackpot with this. And you can see that here if we go to can go to 850s, 925s. I want to go surface actually. And you can see that gradient that we create. You see that we get pulled. Once you start seeing the spin, that spin here on, yeah, I think a snow game is, I think so in Philly. I think so, likely. We'll look at the euro. We'll look at the euro here after I break this down. I promise. Um, And so but anytime you see that little spin there, that's a good indicator that you're wrapping moisture into your system. It's a good cyclogenesis process, and this is deep cold air that meets deep warm air that gets pulled up, man. Your moisture source is going to be your moisture fetch is going to be fantastic. So this whole boundary, we're going to be tapping into the Gulf of Mexico here, straight from the Gulf of Mexico along that boundary, and you're going to have a really good source. So you're going to create some you're going to create some pretty good, significant snowfall banding. So I would be maybe a little bit concerned along eastern coastal Mass, maybe for if you get an eastern wind here. But I will say a lot of that warmer air along the boundary is from the southeast and not from the northeast. So that may be able to hold off potentially. So maybe it would be more of a concern in southeastern Mass. Um, but yeah. All right, let's look at the euro here. We out. Yep. OZ. Let's take a peep here. 500 millibars. Let's see. That looks pretty solid so far. Yep. Bingo. I'm not sure how much more, but it's definitely going to be a little bit further west here. You see those a little bit more amplified with the upper level low there. You see that the snake tongue pop. That's exactly what you want to see. Those height lines just a little bit higher as well. Definitely. Definitely. Now it's still not as good. It's still not quite as good of a look still as the GFS, but that is definitely a much better look there. That is definitely a much better look, and that's closer to my thoughts. So a little bit of a Euro cave here from where it was, and you can see the surface map because that's how you guys see a lot better too. See that there? I'll zoom in for you. So not quite a full cave quite yet, at least, but you can see the Euro getting closer to the idea. So I know you guys see the P-type map better, so I'll show it. There's 12Z, and there's OZ. You can see 997 now. I still don't like, I guess it's a general area of low pressure, but I don't quite like how it's wrapping the, I don't quite like how it's wrapping this, the low kind of. I still think it's I think it's strengthening this maybe a little too much still. I think it's holding too much precipitation into this still. Just a little bit. Oh, that's 12Z. My bad. That's 12Z. Let's go OZ here. See that? 994 now, a little bit weaker. It's not getting pulled up as much. It's getting closer to the boundary. It's getting dragged more. That's what you're seeing. And boom. You get it, and you get a good band here on the euro too. You see it at 700. Look at 700 here on the euro. That's the best 700. Look at that. Euros. It's different still. It's still different. It's not quite. That's a good band there. That's a real good band. Look at the height dam on that. Stand dang near 55, 6. That's about 60. Look at that. Thumping. Thumping. You're thumping. Look at that right too. About New York City northwestward on the euro right here. All this area thumping, 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 thumping. Absolutely thumping right here on the euro. And that continues to pull east northeast. See that? It just doesn't quite fully wrap up still, but definitely euro's trending towards that middle ground of the GFS. Which you like to see. All right, you guys care more about the snow maps. I know I like seeing them too, but so yeah, euro still kind of being not budging with being able to really wrap this up as a storm, but you can see it's getting closer to that general idea if you really want to overanalyze these snow maps. But it's that. There it is. You can see it. Euro's definitely coming along with the idea. I still think it's not wrapping up enough moisture. I think it's still struggling into the upper level low still. You can see that how it was stronger, a little bit more amplified, the upper level low, but still a little too messy, in my opinion, which is usually we're saying the opposite right around this time with the GFS and the euro. Maybe I'm wrong a little bit on totals wise. I'm not just saying that. I generally think that the euro. You guys know I got reasons for all this stuff. So, but the euro here kind of wraps. Still not. Let's see. You see the difference. Yeah, the euro gets that does a little bit better. You see that? Gets it out ahead a little bit more. Gets us out ahead a little bit more interaction with the boundary. Can't look at the surface maps too much. The euro shows. I mean, that's the totals do not represent that was a better run in my opinion. Maybe a little bit, but that was definitely a pretty great run there from the euro. Just the totals. It's just really unable to keep amplifying that upper level low for whatever reason, but you can definitely see it more prominent, more developed, stronger on the upper level low, and it's pulling in more convection too. It's so close to seeing a bigger event there. It's just barely, just barely on the euro. So overall, pretty good. Solid for the OZ suite. No major changes to either of these model runs, but Euro slowly, I think, caving a little bit closer to the GFS, which we want. We want more consensus and guidance. And this is just kind of where I disagree with here. It stops wrapping it. It kind of just gets so spread out. You see that how it's amplifying this convection out here more. I think it's usually we're not talking about the Euro convective feedback. I thought we would be talking about the GFS way more than the Euro with convective feedback issues, and it's the opposite. And that's the thing. I think the euro is amplifying this way too much, in my opinion. I don't think we're going to be. I don't think it's just. This is your upper level low here. You have a negatively tilted trough. Yes, you have this boundary here, Atlantic ridging, right? You have this boundary, negatively tilted trough. Yes, it's a broader trough, but it's a pretty strong upper level low still. Pretty strong upper level low, and it's a negatively tilted trough. If anything, I would seriously suspect this to be the other way around right now on how these models are performing. And what you do here is the GFS amplifies that upper level low and continues to. It's a strengthening cyclone. You're continuing to wrap more and more moisture in, and it's going further north in latitude to meet cold air. Right? Negatively tilted at this point and continuing to move further north. and it kind of gets broadened out, eventually goes up into the North Atlantic. And then we watch something else potentially after. Not super optimistic, but you have to keep an eye on it on the one after. So right here is where I think there's an opportunity for the GFS to finally maybe get a win this winter. Hasn't had too many so far, but it's an opportunity here. Usually it would be the opposite, but it's not surprising why. The NAM's doing, I think, something similar as well. I think the NAM is doing something similar. See that? The euro, you see that there's here's the euro, and you look, here's just one area I'm watching here, right here. See that? It's amplifying the boundary, I think, too much. Too much. And there's the GFS. So it's allows us to wrap in. This is such a minor difference. I'm telling you, it's such a minor difference. It's the smallest, like the smallest you know what hair, as Billy used to Billy likes to say, the smallest you know what hair away from being what the GFS shows. So freaking close. Look at the placement, the upper level low. It's almost equivalent. The euro actually has the upper level low. You could actually even maybe just a tad west of the GFS, believe it or not. But it's not getting quite as close to the boundary. So one thing you could do is if you did push this closer to the boundary, to be able to pull in more as well. But regardless, I just think it's struggling a little bit to pull in this convection. It does here in the beginning, but then as it continues to move towards New York City, southern New England, um, that's where we see it. So this doesn't affect quite as much the Mid-Atlantic, but it does affect more um, New England, New York City, and Northeast PA. So there's definitely going to be an opportunity for, and yes, the snow will be sticking around because it's going to be very cold after. Very, very cold. Yes, great vibes right now. Great vibes. So yeah, so that's totals. We want to get an idea, general threat map that I have here, right? Freaking, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing here. I got I got a general idea. Accumulating snow and the best shot for plowing snow, in my opinion, plowable snow. This could be a little bit further west, maybe, possibly. We'll see. We'll see. Um, it's hard. I don't have a great idea on the rain snow lie yet. I really don't. I think for the most part, west west of Boston, I think should be okay. That could creep. That could creep maybe, but um, I think west of Boston should be able for most should be able to make out pretty well. And then Connecticut's tough. I think coastal Connecticut probably is going to have to deal with some mixing here, if I had to guess. Um, but that's a tough call. Long Island, I think Long Island finishes as snow. I think you maybe start as snow, mix, finish as snow. That's what I would kind of go with. Eastern end of Long Island, probably not as much. Northwestern part of the island, probably more. This whole general area, this is really, I think, your best shot though for maybe a little bit. I don't know if I want to go that far. This is probably your best bet for 6+ though. This is probably your best bet. And then double digits are definitely possible, if not likely, for within the best banding as well, in my opinion. Just based on, I think the Euros. Um, we just talked about why I think the Euro looks like what it does. So the Euros, you can see amplifying a little bit more. It gets a little bit closer to the boundary, but one thing it still doesn't do is All right, it gets that upper level low a little bit closer to the boundary, but I just still look at that. Look how much it amplified. Look at this. It amplified this more at OZ. So it brought this. It it brings the whole evolution. These two we see a little bit more stream interaction, but it amplifies the surface low here, and you can see that it's a little. It's trying to. I think it's trying to amplify that too much. That's one of my big takeaways from the euro. Look at that, still 997 still. And actually, it's not about the intensity of the surface low. It's about more the upper level look, in my opinion. It's more the upper level look of it wrapping like more convection around this area, more convection, being wrapped into that area versus allowing it to get pulled in here. It's like it's trying to maybe double barrel too much, in my opinion. Now, maybe the euro is onto something a little bit. Maybe it's onto something a little bit, and we'll look back and be like, oh, guess it was trying to tell us something. But man, it really wraps up that. I just you just don't typically see something get that wrapped up along a boundary like that. It would be very. I can't imagine it that much. I mean, it really wraps. Is that a 9? I mean, it wraps it to a 988. Like, that's GFS is a 995. Canadian 996, I believe that is. Yeah. So there's a big difference right there. There's a big difference. And let's see, what's the NAM do? NAM actually doesn't wrap it as much. I just think the NAM is just the NAM. Maybe this wasn't as much as a NAM bomb as people thought or at first, but it's because the preset map is like, I don't know what's going on with the NAM right now. The 12K, it's so messy. The 3 resolve it better, and the 3K was like 6 to 12 for like a good region of or region of southern New England. But I don't know what's going on. I had some questions. I don't know why the NAM looks as messy as it does, but it's the NAM still. Give me another day to be able to put really any, if at all, weight on it. What do we got for questions here? I know a lot of you typed your questions, maybe earlier, but what do we got? Expect a snow game in Philly. I think I answered that. I think so. I'm not going to use the NAM for that. What time's the game in Philly? Is it 1? Is it a 1 o'clock? Is it a 4? Probably a 4, right? Or is it an 8? Regardless, all that timing's probably pretty good. $993. To a 988 early. Too. Notice the intensity where it wraps up. This thing wraps up a little bit earlier too on the euro. Gets to 988 early. Man, I think it'd be tough, man, to get this thing. 988. Eagles game is at 3. Okay. Yeah, it'll probably be a good bet then that they'll get some snow during that game. Yeah, yeah. They'll get snow during that game. Probably, if not sleet/snow. There could be some mix in Philly during the middle of the storm. It's not impossible. I wouldn't rule it out. But for the most part, Philly area should, for the most part, remain mostly snow. I think Boston makes out well. Maybe not as good as to the west, but I have a good feeling. Well, take out your feelings, my man. CV-19, we know that can be tough sometimes in Boston. Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit back and forth on Boston right now. I like Metro West a lot better than Boston with this, but I think Boston should be able to definitely, probably if I had to guess, um, well, definitely at least finish a snow in Boston for sure. And you'll be able to get some thumpage in Boston. I'm fairly confident, not 100%, but fairly confident that regardless, you'll finish a thumpage in Boston as it continues to pull eastward. Do you think CMC has a chance? Who's Mark? I'm sorry, I don't know who that is, but I think the Canadians too far west, but don't dismiss it completely. Don't dismiss it completely. Although I do think it is too far west. Um, so far, I'll have to compare after the stream, see how the Euro's doing, run around analysis. But so far, the GFS is the closest in terms of current observations from OZ. And after stream, I'll be able to do O6Z observations and see which model is doing the best. Bobby, I think Manchester, New Hampshire is in a freaking great spot. I think Manchester, New Hampshire is in a fantastic spot for this one. I would be like, I think that's like maybe one of the more safer spots for the system. I think um, most margin for error right now, use yellow. Most margin for error, I don't even know if I would go that far because it's not the for most margin for error for the highest ceiling. For highest ceiling, right here, right here, this area. Most margin for error for the highest ceiling with this storm. That's where I would say. But somewhere in here is still going to make out very, very good. Very, very good. Like there's going to be a band out there that rips. It's gonna rip. It will be like the beginning stages of the band probably. In DC, yeah, you'll have a shot for accumulating snowfall here. You might be a little close. Um, I don't know. I'm not. You might be a little close to that mix line in DC, but I haven't looked at the DC part too much of this storm. But I think you should be able to get. You're the beginning stages of cyclogenesis as well, so it'll be a little tough. Um, but yeah, I mean, it just again the thing with the Euro is just the surface map. I hate so many of these surface maps with this storm. I hate a lot of them. I think maybe the NAM 3K and the GFS. I mean, the Canadian for what it shows is depicting it pretty somewhat accurately. Even the NAM 3K though is still just this surface. It just it's just I think it's kind of poo poo, which is surprising for the Euro. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm being too dismissive of it. But I have my scenario in my head how I'm forecasting it, and this isn't still I think close enough to where I'm at, or in my opinion, doesn't depict as well what it shows at 700. You can see here, you see how this doesn't get even, this is still a really good band. This is a thumping, gotta go switch the color again. This is a thumping band here. Thumping, thumping band here at 700 millibar vort. And it barely touched the totals. Barely. There's 18Z and there's OZ. Look at the change at 700. You see that? That's what I'm talking about right there. So you had a pretty significant jump at 700. That was the biggest jump I noticed. And it just added the surface map, just I don't think reflects this quite as well. And it really just doesn't want, for whatever reason, wrap this in. Be able to wrap this convection in here and consolidate energy more to get more significant banding and a little bit stronger of a storm. And you collapse the rain snow line in doing that as well. You collapse the rain snow line, so you'll offset that a little bit. It will pull northwest. It will have to pull northwest some, but it won't be able to go so far because those best dynamics have to consolidate. The GFS, I've said that a lot now, especially on X too. I think, yeah. Let's see, let me go through some of these X 11L models. Locked in a different way. Happy median. It might snow finally. Yay! Yes. Long Island. We talked about Long Island. What time is the Euro? We just showed the Euro. Central PA. Could be an interior band, but accumulating snowfall likely. Not probably not the sweet spot for this storm though, if I had to guess. Boom! It's right here though, just right here. I'm telling you, it's so close. It just doesn't wrap this in. You wrap this in, you get big storm, like you do on the GFS. That's your difference, and the Canadian, and pretty much the NAM, pretty much all the rest of the guidance almost. See that? Wraps it in. Wraps it in on the GFS. It doesn't on the Euro. Very thin margins there. And the GFS does have it slightly closer to the boundary as well, just barely. Allows it a little bit more of an interaction to take place. So I don't know. I don't typically like going against the Euro like this, given its track record, but I also don't think the Euro is the model people think it is. Some people, not all, but some. It's not this godly, fantastic model. It's performed great this year relative to others, some other models, especially the GFS. But every system is different, and so far, the GFS is handling it better. But I'll have to take a look at OZ Euro to compare after. So I'll have to see which. I'll have to see how it ends up. But so far, the GFS um, is closest to observations currently. I want to see the ensembles here for the Euro. Those loaded yet, or does it wait until after? It has. Okay. Just don't freaking take forever like you did last night. We got stuck on hour 12 for about 30 minutes. The GEFS also. The GEFS, like the GEFS 10-1 map is like the same as the Euro Conchera map right now. That's a weird thing to see. I'm picking a fight with you. Picking a fight. Yeah, I want to look at closer at the winds since it again, since the boundary is to the southeast. That's where your warm air it will struggle to wrap in fully all around. So, but I'll have to look closer. I don't have No, I do agree with that. I put that out. I think I put that thought out earlier in the stream, or might have forgot to. I do think I put that out earlier in the stream. Yeah, I think those along the mix line, I wouldn't worry too much because I think. Um, Remember, I didn't say Boston. Like I'm just not 100% sure yet. CB19. I'm just not sure yet. I didn't say Boston will definitely mix, but I just think regardless that you should be on the lookout. Be on the lookout at least in Boston. But yeah, the panels, man, were thumped. They were juiced. I mean, they were freaking. Same with the 18Z ones too. You see OZ, 18Z. I mean, man, these things were. There are some real high end ceiling ones too in here as well being depicted. 18Z, OZ. I mean, there are a ton. Yeah, sad CB19 time. GFS. I mean, look at that. I mean, that's a solid snowstorm mean right there. This is a 5 to 7 inch mean across this whole area here. 10 to 1 ensemble map. Look at this 5 to 7 inch mean across this area. That's a fantastic look right there. It's a fantastic look. And by the way, too, during the storm, everybody, always tag me. Always feel, don't ever worry about not tagging me. If you want to tag, boom, throw me. A lot of times I'll either like, retweet, reply, or something, interact with you guys when you send me your storm reports. So always feel like you can send me that kind of stuff because I enjoy, sending that, sending all that BS out there. Good BS. Love retweeting, liking all your storm reports. Um, Let me see here. I hate pulling up Pivotal because it's going to send my computer into a fritz. So I'm not even going to do it. It's going to say I hate. I was going to look at the UCMet, but it's fine. I don't care too much about the UCMet really. Yeah, and that's the thing. I just think this supports thumpage more than what the euro is showing. The euro is just really not consolidating the dynamics. It has the look and everything. It's just not consolidating the dynamics for whatever reason quite yet. And that's your difference. Let me peep. Let's see. Euro ensemble may be almost out unless it's stuck again. It is. Okay, fantastic. Fantastic. Let me look at 500 height first. I'll vort first. And I'll go east. Yeah. Yeah, raise those height lines as the ensemble mean. So see the boundary get lifted north a little bit more too as an ensemble mean. Typically, I don't care too much. Again, I don't care too much about ensembles, but for the euro specifically, when you have in kind of an outlier, you kind of have to start looking at different things to ask why. Why is it showing what it's showing? I care more about that than being like, oh, it's definitely wrong. Like I don't like doing that right away. Like yes, I'm saying the euro I don't think is close to the most accurate depiction with this system, at least totals wise, um, and that's why. It might be. We've explained why, but yeah. But I want to see kind of here as these panels load out. Yeah, that's more amplified. A little bit sharper with the trough too, not as broad. You see that? A little bit more consolidated. Sharper trough. It's closer to the GFS. We'll see if it fully caves. It would probably be tomorrow. Probably be tomorrow if it does fully cave. Weatherbell has the UCMet, but it doesn't load out. Weatherbell has a UCMet, but it takes forever for whatever. Pivotal gets it out right away. Weatherbell does not. It takes forever. They're always behind. So let me get to, and again, reminder, special collaboration tomorrow, and it will, I will be on hopping on someone else's stream to discuss um, Northeast. I'll discuss it. We'll kind of discuss it all, but I'll get to focus on my region a lot and provide some good insight there, Mid Atlantic, Northeast, and he'll get to talk about South and Southeast. So, um, pretty notable YouTuber. So you can maybe take a guess to know who he is. But um, so what we'll and I'll be on the lookout for that tomorrow. It'll probably be around 7ish. That live stream. My live stream will remain the same. That's not changing. That's not changing. So y'all got to come back here tomorrow night as well. But be on the lookout for that. We got a cool collab coming up here. It'll help get some good exposure here on YouTube. And just also, I just love collaborating with others as well. It's fun. Not too many YouTube channels you see have multiple people talking about it as well. You see a lot of YouTube channels that's mainly just one person, like we have here, or X as well. We do great. I love you all, but on YouTube it's just mainly one person. So it'll be pretty cool to have multiple people going back and forth, kind of like Weather Channel or a newscast or something. But you get to choose what you're talking about in depth. So it will be that will be fun tomorrow. I'm excited about the prospects of that. But let's go to panels. Actually, is what we're gonna do, and we'll go to. Oh, the panels aren't even freaking close. All right, the panels are gonna take a second. Panels will take a second. I don't like looking at the surface 10-to-1 maps before the panels either. I have my ways. I'm telling you, like when I get up, it's the guy who's going to be ordering pizza next week. It's not him. It's not him. Although we could collab. We considered collabing at some point, and we might at some point in the future. We might at some point in the future, but at least not anytime soon, quite yet. All right, panels, come on, load out here. We'll look at the Canadian panels. I'm curious about some of these ensembles. Canadian shifted a little bit east on from 12Z. It may not have looked like it because you look at the surface maps, but it did at 500. Again, I hate to sound condescending. I know I sound condescending with the surface maps, but I literally I know wholeheartedly how important. It's not Mitch. I know. There's another one. Yeah, he's very, very well liked. You'll love him if you don't already. He's awesome. Yeah, we were talking for a while today about how are we going to do it, broke it down, just other stuff too. Got to know each other a little bit, so that was fun. The Canadian here. Yeah, Canadian shows you it's not all those interior hits that you see on the ensemble. You see on the there is obviously, but there's a pretty good amount of non-interior hits as well. And the one thing that I look at too is the non-interior hits. This is one thing I look at as well to be like, all right, is the Euro onto something? Look at the non-full-on interior hits on the Canadian. Look at those. This is my point here. It's the same with the GFS. These are 10-to-1 maps. Remember, 10-to-1. I know it's harder to see, so I'll zoom in a little bit for you all. It's not going to give me those states. I can zoom in one more for you guys. But look at this. So all the non-interior, full interior solutions. So here's one. These are 10-to-1, remember, too. Here's another. Here's another. Here's definitely another. Here's another. Closer. Here's another. That's the weakest one. Here's another. Some of these are kind of close. Here's. Look at all these. It still shows one. Too bad it's not max velocity. Love watching is I've never watched max velocity before, so I can't tell you. How much snow in Brooklyn? I'm predicting 3 to 7. Well, it's always cool to have a prediction. Clouds are in the sky. That may not be a terrible prediction for Brooklyn, honestly. I don't have New York City's a tough call right now. I know it's always a tough call, but you got to remember, there's freaking 20 million people living in that city, and you start going out on a limb too much. you just get burned. So it's not like I'm not trying to be like I'm not trying to be timid to make it's just I also really don't have if I had more clarity on New York City, then I would be fine with it. But when I don't have clarity and 20 million people live in that city, man, I got a lot of New York City people, a lot of New York City Metro, a lot of New York City people that follow. So I can't go too much quite yet. But Ashan, we got another Brooklyn person here, my man. Got some company. Might have to link up with Clouds Are in the Sky. Uh, but I do think NYC can thump, regardless of totals. I think NYC will finish to be able to thump here. Hey, those over unders, by the way, are looking pretty good for January. They're looking pretty good for a lot of for those to be hit potentially. Like in those over unders now. But here's my point. Look at this here on the Canadian. This would be an epic failure by the Canadian, like so epic, an epic failure by the Canadian ensembles. All of these 10 to ones, look at them for reference. I'll pull up. I got no problem showing going to Weather Bell here and going to disregard the pink marks on the screen and look at the Euro 10 to 1. Now, don't these aren't 10 to 1's terrible. Like I always say, it's absolutely god awful. I hate that map. Wish they didn't even show. No, not that, but just hate when it gets posted and people think it's actually something. Take your time. Look at that. 10 to 1. 10 to 1, the Euro showing it's showing 2 to 3 inches of QPF. There's not a bone in my body that based on what we see, and there's no other model showing 0.2 to 0.3 inches of QPF. 10 to 1. I'm sorry, I love you in the Mid Atlantic, but I would be 100% shocked if you saw more QPF than all of Southern New England and Maine. That when I look at this is the biggest. This is the biggest thing. When I look at, I'm like, there's no shot. Not almost. I would never want to say no shot, but I would find it highly unlikely. Highly unlikely. That's very little QPF. That's about 2 to 3.5, 2.2 to 0.35 inches of QPF. Even the Euro AI is showing about 0.5 to 0.6 QPF in the max, in a general 0.3 to 0.5, which would be a general 5 to 10 inches. That would be about, depending on where, because there's going to be some insane ratios in the thing about that. The Euro puts like 6, 7 inches down for some people in the interior on about 0.3 QPF. Those are above 20 to 1 ratios. There's going to be some insane ratios. I'm telling you. That's why when I look at the upside with this, when you look back, it's like, man, it's like, wow, it's like, man, some of those totals maybe weren't as crazy as we thought. That some of those crazier models showed. Your snow growth is going to be fantastic in that band, and it's going to make out well. Even on the Euro, this doesn't make sense. Even for what it shows at 700, this doesn't I'm genuinely confused how it doesn't show more. This 700 look does not say 0.2 to 0.3 inches of QPF. Look at that. That's a gorgeous 700 look there. Like when I saw, that's why I was like, oh, the Euro. Like I don't think the Euro surface map is doing good enough right now for what we have in store. Look at the 700 look. That's a strong heavy snow band setting up. That's a heavy snow band setting up. Even if quick duration, that's a strong heavy snow band. So I just don't think it's I don't think the Euro is. I'm really surprised by the Euro's performance, in my opinion. Now, maybe it ends up being closer to reality, all said and done, but I'd be surprised. What do you think the odds are for next week? You get snow, if any. Really cannot have any snow on Friday. Yeah, we'll break that down in a second. But here's my point here. Look at the Canadian ensembles. These are all the weakest members I pointed out. The non-interior ones, which will be a little bit less amped. There's not a single member on that. Not even its weakest member on the Canadian shows shows less than what the euro has on the operational. That is a major red flag for the euro. That's a major red flag. The Canadian's not some amped up model either, right? Nor is the GFS. The GFS is a stronger storm. It's not about necessarily um, progressive and amplification bias is definitely playing a part, but it's not necessarily all about that. It's not quite all about that with this system. It is with the surface boundary, and that's why it impacts what happens. So, if that makes sense, but that this is strange in my opinion. In the grand scheme of things, my it just doesn't change my general thoughts, but just like in terms of analysis of the euro, it is very freaking strange, guys. In my opinion, I would have. It is hard to imagine it would be this much of an epic failure. Like this is like all the GEPS members here on the Canadian. There's not a single one. Its weakest member does not show. Its weakest member does not show less. Its weakest member shows more than what the euro has, 10-1. Its weakest member is not only that. Its weakest member is like freaking 6 to 10 in New York, like New York City, Jersey, and like 4 to 8 across southern New England. Its weakest member. The euro's like 4 to 7 right now. Kachara. And the general like mean of all those lower ones is like 6 to 12. It just be it would be a terrible failure for the euro here. Look at that! Oh my goodness! Look at the Jeps mean. That is crazy. Look at that freaking thing. That's incredible. Look at the Jeps mean, guys. That's 10-1. Think about how good the ratios would be. Again, it's not a snow map, but look at that. That is incredible for the storm we're dealing with. I get excited for the standards we have set. So yeah, that is this is even the JEPS right here. You see that? The JEPS mean when it's further southeast like this, it's definitely showing some room here for that rain snow line to maybe not be as far west as maybe the operational depicted potentially. That's a fantastic. That's a fantastic JEPS mean. That's 10-1 too. That's look at that swath of 6 to 9 inches there on that JEPS. That's freaking fantastic. Unbelievable. I mean, if you did the JEPS mean to Kachera, that's like that's the mean of Kachera is like 8 to 14, 8 to 15. It's more like 9. It's like that's like a more than that. That's like a 10 to 16 inch mean here, almost with how good ratios are going to be. That's incredible. Wow, that's a shocker. And the GFS too. I mean, freaking look at that mean. Oh, that's the I almost lost it. I was like, what did I miss? Look at the and you see how closely it aligns to the operational aligns with the GEFs. I know it's a snow map, but look at that. You see how closely it aligns? That's a green flag for the GFS. We don't usually play this game. It's very weird. Even me saying this, it's like, Bray, something's wrong here. You shouldn't. Why are you praising the GFS this much? It shouldn't be handling us this well. It's strange. So we know if it doesn't happen, we know what happened. But let's get those panels for the Euro cooking, and then we'll talk about. We have more snow to track after this. By the way, we're not done yet. I'm telling you guys, this stretch here. I had some fun trolls in the comments, but this stretch here is going to be pretty exciting. So let's get to the panels. 6 hours, and we'll go to the YouTube comments have been great, by the way, lately. Also, limited amount of trolls. I just did. Been fantastic. The vibes in chat, by the way, I got to give you guys credit in both X and YouTube have been more than freaking fantastic. I know I'm using freaking fantastic, but it has. It's just a lot of good stuff. Uh, it's been great. Okay, we got the 06C. There's the pretty solid there. Seems like there are some juice. The euro does pick up, not to the extent. These are There's definitely some more juiced up members though, for sure. It was so weird though at 18Z. That was that. Yeah, I mean, even a lot of these ensemble members are still showing like 3-4 inches of, or 0.3, 0.4 of QPF still, or more. A lot of these are more than that too. Let's go to snow totals 1 through 25. Yeah, I mean, some of these are more juiced. See, what was the 10-1 here? Can only compare so much, but it is QPF, so. Okay. And 26 through 50. Yeah. It's not too far off from its consensus. Let's see what the, will probably be a little bit higher if I had to guess. It is. You can see that jump from on the EPS from 18Z to OZ. You see that? Pretty solid jump there. So closer, but and it's it's a pretty good ratio. So don't look at it as, oh my god, why does it only show 2 points? It's just, remember, that's not too far off from what the 10-1 now shows. Look at this. This is a bunch of 2 to 3s right here, QPF wise. It's pretty much the same as right on the ensemble, the mean. But yeah, so listen, I don't have a perfect reason to why the euro is showing what we have reasons, but the fact that all these, some of the ensemble members are picking up on it. There's definitely, it's not like none of them. There's definitely a cluster of ensemble members that are picking up on what the other models are putting down, but it's all the guidance is against the European right now. I mean, you can even look at the SREF mean here. You can see that it's amplified. It's actually, it's pretty, that rain snow line is actually farther than shows on the NAM. But even then, the SREF mean, which is, the NAM's been, struggling still. This is, look at that. It's still, that's a 3 to 5 inch mean for a lot of those places of 10-1, which is, that's more like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in terms of snowfall totals versus the Euro showing 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so ratios are going to be pretty good. So you don't need to overanalyze the surface maps too much, but that was just like, man, that's like, I can't imagine with this setup that we're going to have such low QPF. Such good potential dynamics at play, thermodynamics at play, especially. The thermodynamics at play here are impressive that we can tap into. And so I really have trouble getting on board with what exactly the Euro's putting down right now. So let's go forward here. You got any questions too, by the way? Any more questions? So here's the Euro. Look at that. Euro. Interesting. Longer, listen, even though the synoptic stuff for the shorter range is definitely the medium, the longer range, it's a little bit less important because it's really small. this is farther out, so it's a little bit it's connected, but the smaller synoptic stuff, it's such a small region we forecast for, and so little differences make a big difference. But over time, not as much. So that's why like it's not like picking and choosing here. The Canadian is actually showing, I think, is maybe even better overall. But so I just want to make that clear. I don't want to get sound defensive, but yeah, that's interesting. Look at that. Look at that 500 look there. Coastal scraper on the Euro. Freaking all out snowstorm for the south southeast. I'm telling you, this one you got to keep an eye on for the northeast too, because here's what you've done over the past couple days. So we have another storm to break down, technically two storms, because we are 4 days out from this. So I have to talk about it, even though all my intention and focus is on what's now. We got to talk about it. Look what we've done here with the Atlantic Ridge. We're continuing to do. I don't like we were a little less vertical, but that's also because look, the Euro has a little bit stronger of a storm, so it's going to push into that ridge a little bit more. But what we are doing is we continue to amplify this Atlantic Ridge. We did it again at OZ here on the Euro. This Atlantic Ridge is continuing to push. And so what the result is, remember we talk about stronger ridge forces moisture to work further north in latitude, and further west in latitude, or in longitude especially. So what this does is it allows the storm to get pushed back, and it potentially allows it, if we go to 500 Vort here, I mean, we can look at any model to do this. There's a good consensus on the general idea of the setup now. It's a pretty sharp trough. It's not a broad, it's definitely not as close to as broad of a trough as we're dealing with now. It's a sharper trough, so it's not it's going to be able to get it's not going to press, but there's not as much concern of a press on this system, if that makes sense. So meaning it will be, if it were a broader trough, it'd be harder to be able to amplify this thing as much because it'd be weaker and strung out. But since it is a relatively sharper trough, the whole trough in general, it's along this. This is very broad, but the part that like there is some stream separation, just a little bit along. Again, this is part of the TPV here, part of the polar vortex. See that? Directly connected to the polar vortex here. So this is going to be deep, deep, deep Arctic air. Again, you're creating another strong baroclinic zone. Thermodynamics at play are going to be unbelievable again with this system. I would favor this being suppressed just because look how much you're pressing. I mean, look how much you're really pressing on this system, really difficult. So you'd favor really areas, maybe mid-Atlantic. Maybe mid-Atlantic can get into this, maybe. But I would favor still southeast to be able to get the most out of this, because along that boundary gets amplified, and you get that short wave gets pulled into the system. You see that gets pulled up and into the system. But here's the thing: this Atlantic Ridge here now, what it's doing is continuing to press. It's continuing to press against this, forcing this to work further and further back this trough, and it's giving it more time to amplify now. So not only are we raising the latitude, the storm, the low pressure has to come, we're also giving this opportunity more time to amplify, potentially. The key part, though, is we really need this. If we can push the northern part of our trough back, the northern part of our system, I guess I should say, it's the polar vortex, it's really where it comes in. If this piece comes in further, here's why you got to keep an eye on this. I really haven't broke this down much. You really need to keep a close eye on the system. It really could theoretically be, because what's happening here, it's this polar vortex, it's this lobe coming down, and that's something that's not going to be able to be sampled. It's going to be like, this could be like one of those last second northwest trends. It very could be, or it could be more suppressed than we see now. But here's the thing, and if you continue to amplify Atlantic Ridge, this could actually be this could be another major snowstorm right on the heels. It would be 2 days after, the 20th, and then it would be the 22nd, right again. And then there's another one to watch, the 24th and 25th. And we're going to talk about that storm signal in a second as well. as we're starting to get a little bit more consensus on the general idea. The GFS has been showing that thing though for like a week now, or maybe not that long, but like 5 days. It's been showing it for a good 5-6 days now. So I got to give it some credit there. The GFS, long range GFS, has been from an eyeball, has been performing well the last 7 days or so. The last 7 days or so, long range GFS has been doing pretty well. I got to give it some credit, at least the operational. So what you see happen, where does this come down now is the question, because this piece is going to phase to the bottom part here of our TPV that drops down, and the bottom edge here of our trough. Where does this, if this drops in further west, this is going to be able to kick up farther. And that's going to maybe allow the angle of this to increase higher. We can increase our heights, and then this thing is able to ride up the coast. And it's going to be a mid-level driven system. You notice we're not wrapping up a 500 low. You see that? You miss it here completely. Euro shows it a little bit better. See how we're not wrapping this up though completely? It really takes a lot of time before it becomes a full-on cyclone, like way out in the Atlantic. Mid-level driven. Look at 700. Look at 700 here. This reminds me, not the evolution of the storm, but from a mid-level perspective, it reminds me a little bit of February, that 2021 storm, where it was just it wasn't a strong upper level low at 500. It was a big trough, but you had great lift. The EPS is out. We already reviewed that. Sorry. It was the EPS was more amped. It came in. There was more members showing more from 18Z. So it kind of came back from 18Z, but was not it hasn't fully caved yet. At least not yet. But with this system here, you see how, look at that 700. It's just this long expanded out area. So like if this does hit too, this amplifies further and it becomes stronger. This becomes a stronger system. In the gradient you create, it's like an actual blizzard threat potentially. You're going to create a very tight gradient if it can let me. I don't know about, but you create a tight gradient, and it could be like this. This needs to be closely kept an eye on here. Closely kept an eye on. It would not, because look, it really just matters where does this polar vortex. See this? This still hasn't happened yet. Your polar vortex stretch with this system still hasn't happened yet. Look where this piece is. Sunday, it's still all the way up here. Most of it is still all the way up here. You see where this comes in? I'm more intrigued about this. I'm pretty skeptical about this happening. It would just be very difficult to be able to get back to back to hit here, but it's not impossible. If it did, by the way, it would be historic. I can't remember the last time within a 48-hour span that we had two snowstorms. I can't remember. Two sizable snowstorms too. This would be a significant one. If it scrapes, then maybe not as much. But if it hits, if this full on hits, and it would be I-95 too. It would be full on. This is not an interior threat. Not an interior threat whatsoever if it were to. Right here on this run, you can see it. It's going to be pretty easy at 500. Right here gets a pretty decent hit on this run on the euro. Right, so you see where that polar vortex, and you'll see how much too this interaction happens. See how this splits kind of? How much gets pulled this way, how much gets pulled down this way too. That's another factor. Little details, all these little details matter and add up. So this gets pulled down here. Where does this come in now? This comes in a little bit further west, stretches this out, pulls this up a little bit more. It allows this shortwave here to come in further, this upper level low to come in further. Then you amplify the whole system and you bring it. And then if you do that, if you're able to do that just a little bit, not even a ton, and amplify this Atlantic ridge here more, which, listen, if we're taking anything from the last event, there's a good shot that models are underestimating it. And what this does here, this really it would lock in another storm potential. And you can see the CMC showing that as well. You see that the Canadian does. See how the Canadian drops that in a little bit further west than the Euro? You see that? Look at the difference. You see that the Canadian drops it in just a little bit further west where it comes in. Allows for a little bit better stream interaction, and so you get a snowstorm. You get a legitimate snowstorm on the Canadian. You see that on the P-type map? It really more scrapes, but for mid-Atlantic, it's a legitimate snowstorm pretty much. Virginia, southern Delmarva, almost DC, and kind of scrapes the islands of Massachusetts. So very, 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 very close. And it's not a strong low pressure. You see that 1,000 millibars? Doesn't need to be. Does not need to be. It's going to be mid-level driven, this event. You don't need a strong surface cyclone to get big snow totals out of this. And that's why the southeast, at a minimum, they're going to get some pretty hefty totals probably out of this. This is such a deep clash. It's like that. This could be in a historic storm for the southeast, maybe. Look at the moisture fetch here. Oh my goodness. If this hits the northeast, man, this would be like, I got to start looking at this more because this is so close. This is so close to being such a big storm for us. Being in this spot, if you just looked at it verbatim, if you imagine any storm system and you were 4.5 days out and this P-type map was right here, you would look at it and be like, whoa, that's something you got to watch, right? It absolutely is. It's just we have another storm we're tracking right now, which is why the attention isn't getting focused as much. But the south, and look at the moisture fetch here. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. Look at this. We're pulling from the freaking down south of the Yucatan. We're pulling it from the Caribbean. Look at this. Look at the moisture fetch. This is getting pulled. This is what's getting pulled into our system here. Whoever gets the snow in the south is going to get ripped on. I'm telling you. I'm like, wherever this happens. If it's way more suppressed, then it might be. But these southern totals, man, are going to be they're going to be impressive, I think. It's been the coldest we've seen the southeast the past few years. Yeah, no question. Consistent cold too. I'm telling you, you can't overlook this. Mid-Atlantic and I-95 Northeast, you can't overlook this now. I got to start looking at this a little bit more. I'm not going to say it's my fault either. We have a legitimate snowstorm we're tracking, so I'm not going to blame myself too much for dismissing it, but it's right to be skeptical still. We are pressing on this a good amount. But where this thing drops in, that's the key. This is the key for whether or not. There's two keys, actually, two keys. What you want to watch for run to run here, where does this part of the polar vortex drop in? The further west this drops in, regardless of the Atlantic ridge, strengthening more or not, this opens up the opportunity for a snowstorm. And if you strengthen your western ridge even more, especially higher north, so if you strengthen your Atlantic ridge you increase the height lines up here more, farther north in latitude, if you increase these height lines, which you'll do regardless if you continue to strengthen this ridge. But you'd press it more west, and in consequence, it would also push a little bit farther north. And what you do is you give an opportunity for actually the Atlantic ridge didn't press more on this run. That's the funny thing, or at least just on the Canadian's analysis. You see that 12Z? It's actually stronger on 12Z with the Atlantic ridge. So it kind of resolved that. The difference here on this run, I'm telling you, this is the biggest factor, I think. You have pretty good ridging. You have pretty good ridging here. I would love to maybe see it if we can get a little bit stronger, which, hey, based on models and the lack of the lack of what they did prior, I think it's definitely possible. You got to keep an eye on another polar vortex stretching up there too. The Canadian down the line. Holy smokes, look at that cold air. Maybe another polar vortex. That'd be a pretty big stretch there. Is that almost a split? No, it can't be. No, it doesn't all come down in one piece. So be another stretch. That's an operational one. We can't look too much into it, but and that's another one down the line. But this is the key. There's two keys, right? But this is a big one. Right here, this TP, where this part tropospheric polar vortex comes in. Where does this piece come in? Comes in further west. It gives you an opportunity for snowstorm on. This is something models will go back and forth with. I'm not just saying this to blow smoke up your guys' you know what. I'm telling you, I'm legitimately looking at this now, just because of the uncertainty of where that piece comes in. Now, this could theoretically, if this comes in further east, then this might be get full on more suppressed, and it's nothing. But if you amplify this more, or sorry, if you drop this in further west, it's full on go for coastal scraper I-95 snowstorm maybe, especially for the mid-Atlantic. And this doesn't take away from the southeast either. Coastal portions potentially, yes, but you still get a big opportunity in these places still, a big opportunity here for southern places. So you don't have to worry about it's not going to vanish. It's not going to vanish. For the south, maybe it gets pulled further northwest, but it's not going to vanish. And then I didn't think originally there would be a shot to get 3 snowstorms, but there is actually a legitimate chance here. So what happens in after is, you notice right on the heels, look how quickly we drop in another big old piece of you know what, big old 5 cyclonic vortex that drop in a big old piece of upper level energy here, and we drop this all in basically at once, and we just allow this thing to drop in. It pulls in that Gulf moisture, and we see this thing basically take off right away. And you're seeing that on the GFS as well. You see that a little bit different orientation, but you see that it pulls in a different piece of the polar vortex on the backside, so you get a little bit different of a look. But you see that upper level low. This is way down the line, so the specifics of this are still questionable, but there's another storm signal here. In this one could be another big one as well. There's another high ceiling with this as well, like a very high ceiling with this, because you continue to have vertical Atlantic ridging and vertical Western ridging, and you'll elongate this trough too. So you'll press against this trough, so it may lack some room to breathe, but you'll squeeze this thing to allow this moisture to really elongate and pull northward, potentially down the line, regardless of the evolution of the 500. And you see that here at the Euro as well. Euro's picking up on it as well now too. It's just more suppressed. This would be like another southern snowstorm maybe. Yeah, look at that. Another southern snowstorm. Just a little bit different evolution. So there's still a lot going on here, but look at that. That's a full-on polar vortex. Got to keep an eye on this down the line. That's a big change. That would be the big. I mean, we would really. I mean, I don't think this pattern is really going to go away as much as people think anytime soon. But man, if we get a full-on, look how how cold we would get here. What's that height line? 482. 482. Look how cold we would get. Look how cold we would get there. I know it's 300 out, but man, I gotta take a look at ensembles now. down the line here. Hey, listen, I told y'all, hey, winter's exciting right now. Winter is very exciting right now. OZ, GFS, Jeff's kind of it's picking up on it a little bit, maybe. Mixed signals. Canadian. Yeah, you can see that. Mixed, but look at that too. I mean, that's still a decent look. So we're at the euro here. Euro full on shows it. Holy mother. That's the ensemble mean. Are you bleeping me right now? That is gorgeous long range. That is a gorgeous long range look right there. Holy crap, that's gorgeous. That's one of the best long range ensembles I've seen in a minute now. Atlantic Ridge, Western Ridge still present, but not too strong. That's deep Arctic air, man. This is, I'm telling y'all, I think this winter is going to be pretty good. This ain't the end of it. This little stretch here, I don't think this is the end of it. If I had to take a shot here, I really don't think this is the end of what we got going on here. There is some potential for this to be an epic January, man. There is some potential for this to be an epic January. But is that the UCMet down the line there? UCMet's got it. UCMet's got this storm. That's the 24th, 25th one. What's it do? This is 12Z, so that was earlier today. Kind of showing. All right, but we alluded to this though. We alluded to this. This isn't right. It's not out of the blue what's happening here. Scroll for a second, but we got any questions too about this storm upcoming? What's happening here? General questions about the pattern. I did not just be expected to be as intrigued by the 22nd as I was, before breaking this down tonight, but quite an evolution here over the past 72 hours of the general thoughts about winter, I would say now for sure. We'll find that though. I'm telling you guys, I've been saying it for days now. Those P-type maps. GFS, you got to give it some credit here. You got to give the GFS credit for this system. It's pretty. GFS long range was on that system. It was on. Here we go. Here is it. Had some fun trolls to this tweet, but that's fine. I bring this as evidence that I am not a complete. I am not a complete idiot. I am not a complete idiot. I am okay at this thing. Not great, but I'm okay. Decent. So again, like I talked about, some of the same stuff taking place. So happy about that. Wave propagation. rounding off the boundary, and the other side of the western ridge and the PV will complicate things, and that's exactly what's happening. So I'm glad I was able to pick up on that. This is the key: consistent western and Atlantic ridging and the PV stretch. That's what's keeping, it's what's remaining in place. And yes, Sunday, Monday, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 26th. Not too shabby. I know I sound like condescending and like, uh, what do you call it? Trying to self-deprecate to try to make myself seem better. But no, I'm just generally, especially in the long range. I'm not great. I've never been too great at the long range, but I feel like I've been able to gotten better over the past couple of years at identifying longer range signals. So um, we've done that better, I think, this winter for sure. Be able to, identify potential and um, again, like the same thoughts, like the idea we create an impressive thermal gradient for storms to take place with cold air in place and ride up/off the coast. Obviously, no guarantees, but this is the exact thing that's driving the storm potential here. And even beyond this, there's some real high ceiling potential with some of these systems down the line. Um, I want to see how the 22nd evolves first, but off the cuff, I would say maybe there's a higher ceiling theoretically with the 24th, 25th, but but I want to see how the 22nd evolves first. Uh, sound honest, you just have a passion for weather and you know a lot. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't know as much as you think. CB19. I, I listen. I know it sound it. You're like, no, the way you talk, brother. You know a ton. It's like I know. I like people tell me this like I get it on the comments and the love that I get from so many people. It's awesome. Um, but I genuinely don't. I don't have all this great possessive of knowledge. I don't have the same amount of basic core fundamentals that a meteorologist has in their degree, but I think that works for me a lot. That I'm not confined to those those standards necessarily. I kind of get to go rogue a little bit, and how I see fit. I get to develop my own thoughts, and um, I'm not being formed by other people a lot, and and I say that I don't think I know a lot at CB19. I say that because I just study this stuff so hard. Like that's really it. Not on purpose. You're right. I have an absolute passion for this stuff, and I just love it, man. I can't explain it. It sounds so stupid to be like when I really think about it, man. I get so excited. Can't believe it. Like what is even so exciting about that? Sometimes I think about it and you can't explain it to people. You just can't explain it. What gets you so excited and tracking these stuff, the maps. It's just I don't know. It's an art form. It's an art form to this. It's incredible. And for me, when I'm passionate about something, it's really not hard for me to be good to be decent at it because if I put my mind on it, I'm not gonna let anything deter me from trying to get the right answer. So a little bit of a control freak. So I'm also a little psychotic, but in a somewhat healthy way. Somewhat healthy way. Some things it sucks for, other things it's really beneficial for. And it's for this it can be really helpful. I'm also stubborn, so I like to stick to my process, and I believe in what I believe in. So helps hurt sometimes, but it helps a lot as well. So I really, I just really love this stuff, and I try to get that to show. That's why I'm so investing a lot into YouTube. I really think we can expand, and I think we can really take off there. So the X will never change. I'm not going to take it. I was actually having a conversation with someone about this today. I was like, man, I can't, I did. I expanded on YouTube, but I didn't go corporate. I'm never going to decline, at least at anytime soon. Not going to force you guys on X to come over here to YouTube just because, yeah. I would theoretically make more money quicker and faster if you did that. I'm not gonna do that to y'all, at least not yet. I'm just kidding, but yeah. So I just it's man, this stuff's awesome. I just love it. I'm turning 30. Oh yeah, you're older than I thought. You're turning 30 this year, and I geek about the weather all the time, so I know the feeling. Man, it's just awesome. It's just awesome. And I just learn quick. Most of the stuff I've learned too. It's been in the past, um, pretty much the last, 3 4 years. A lot of the stuff. I just I just got a passion for this stuff. I grew up loving it, but never really. I was just kind of more of an observer than anything else for a while, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to start posting and some thoughts. Like a weenie dweeb. If you go back, don't do it. But if you do go back on YouTube, you can find some of those thoughts, some of those original, those OG BGWX, and you can see how much more knowledgeable I am now. Very, very, very stupid when I'm in the beginning. I don't want to self-deprecate myself that much, but compared to what I know now, I'm hyping myself up if I view it in that way. I know a good amount more now than I did back then. Good resources too, always getting Billy's obviously been a good influence to have. Bernie Reno was another good influence. I never got to talk with him, never talked with him at all, but like I have with Billy, but a good influence to have for sure. And it just, for me, I always feel like I have a good way of being able to, just in general, not just weather, but being able to pick up on the right sources of information, which I think this is not a weather thing. It's a huge problem in society now. I don't like to get too corporate. Not any one specific thing, not to get political or anything else. We have a huge problem in society of being able to pick accurate and important and useful information, especially on with social media and news. It's a huge problem we got going on in this country. It's an epidemic, and of being able to find the right sources of information more so than ever. And that's actually a big reason probably why TikTok's getting, getting canned maybe. So that's an off topic one, but and for me it's huge being able to find how can I, always in search of trying to be as best as I can about the stuff I'm passionate about. And this is it right here. This is it. This is one of my greatest passions. Obviously I love sports too, and um, you know, it's awesome. This is just one of my greatest passions. So I take no shame in in being this invested into this stuff as I am. But yeah, let's see, CB19. Yeah, oh my god, look at that potential. And on a side note, look what you do here. If you get the tropics involved now, if you start pulling the tropics up into the flow down the line here, my lord, what we could do down the line. My lord, what we can do down the line. If you get a polar vortex stretch of deep Arctic air to meet tropical flow, my goodness, the potential and the ceiling for some of these storms off the charts. What you could do here, off the charts. Look at that consistent tropical flow from the freaking Caribbean, from South America, from the Amazon freaking rainforests. Be incredible. Let's see. What'd you say? CB19. I got into weather at a very young age as a child, getting blizzards in the winter and severe storms in the summer where my passion started. 2003 President's Day blizzard kicked it off for me. Yeah, that was a big one. That was a big one. I was alive, but not. I was alive, but did not have any interest in weather quite yet. Or was I? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I just love this stuff. So it's always hard. Sometimes I try to separate the analysis, especially, because I don't have a job and I don't have to be confined. I can kind of do whatever I want, which is beautiful. And I like that control. I love it. I would not be able to do this as a probably as a broadcast. I'd try to explain to the audience. I'd always be trying to get meteorology and explain it. Never would have the time, because now what they do in broadcast meteorology is make you do quick hits and quick information rather than explain stuff and break it down and get you, instead of trying to target your niche, is what they do is they try to target the general audience. The quick hit, what's the weather, and that's it. Not why is the weather happening, what to look for, and how it could change. That's why I'm telling you, that's a big part of why people get mad at the broadcast Mets all the time now. And it's not necessarily 100% their fault, really. Like, they have to do such quick hits now. They can't really explain their thoughts. They have to be like, this is what's happening, get up and get out. And then when it doesn't happen because it's the weather, models change. And then they have to change it. And they're like, what the heck happened? It's like, well, they didn't really get a chance to break it down too much. So that's why internet weather is taking off the way it has over the past 5 years. It's grown exponentially. Ryan Hall, Max Velocity, huge people for that stuff. Obviously, BGWX soon, obviously, as well. But that's why it's taken off so much, because, man, it's just, that's where people want to go. That niche is still there. That niche is present and only growing for the amount of people that want to know more about this stuff, or at least intrigued by this stuff. So that's why it's tough, because you're losing that core niche you have, that people that used to grow up, you be glued to those broadcast meteorology. Man, I remember I was Channel 5. I loved all other channels too, but for me, Channel 5 was it. Harvey Leonard, he was awesome. I got to meet him. He's fantastic, super nice, it's just so much knowledge too, historic knowledge. Great, great guy. AJ Burnett too. I got to meet him as well, um, but yeah, it's just less of that now. So that's where broadcast meteorology is kind of is failing to be able to excel the way it used to. It's just that it's a little bit more corporate than what it used to be. Okay. Let's take a look. What are we gonna look at? Pete Bouchard and Harvey Leonard. Pete's great. Pete's awesome too. Yeah, Pete will give us some of his thoughts on X and Twitter. So, Pete's always very, 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 very nice too. Some of these, like some broadcast Mets have ego. Not, a lot don't, obviously, but some do. Like, I've heard stuff about before, like the chief meteorologists, like, yeah, it's like their map, and it's less of a collaborative process. And like the other Mets just kind of got to go with what the chief meteorologist says. But when you have a good collaboration process and you're throwing thoughts off of each other, it makes it good. That's why I'm so excited about tomorrow. It's a good chance for a collaboration process. Maybe, my man tomorrow, brings up something, an aspect maybe I wasn't looking at before, or maybe I do the same for him. Maybe, vice versa. I just throw off different perspectives, and you get. It's always good to have diversity in that way, not the way you think it sounds. Not from a racial perspective, just from a general perspective. Well, I don't want to cancel myself. So yeah, obviously, racial diversity is very important and good. I got to make that very clear. I don't need to cancel myself now. I'm just saying in general that like diversity in general is very important. It allows like new thoughts, like just allows new perspective, and allows you to really potentially go somewhere else your mind wasn't thinking. Allows you to take off maybe in other spots, because you still have knowledge, and now you're adding to it. And the beauty of some of that broadcast meteorology is voices to come on, and that collaboration process lost a little bit, and you're not able to hear those thoughts. Yes, diverse thoughts are huge, just different perspectives. Even sometimes you guys on chat, maybe bringing up something I wasn't looking at every once in a while, even though, like, listen, it's my stream and I'm gonna run it the way I want to. Like sometimes I see a comment and I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good point. I should look at that. Or, maybe that's not a bad idea. So it's very important to have this collaboration of thoughts this time. So that's why, even though I'm gonna have my thoughts, I like seeing what I like. Again, I know my sources. I'm very key on what sources, and I'm good at identifying what's good, what can I use, what's not. Okay, who's all hype and not providing good analysis. Who's maybe stuck in their own ways, has decent analysis, and maybe will apply at some points. Who has overall, and I have my my food chain. I'm not gonna go off, but for example, some great sources that other than myself that you could go to for stuff are like Content WX, Billy, Bernie Rayno, just like good hardcore analysis to understand what's happening better. Like those are some people that can really, provide some context and either break it down in depth on X or break it down on live streams as well. So I think that's excuse me, that's important. That's important to have is good sources as long as long as it's as get to get diverse thoughts, but as long as it's from good sources as well, that can be key. So I feel like there's a good good mix of that to be able to challenge myself and make me question myself, not to doubt, but to question. Yes, to doubt a little bit, but not my confidence, but what's happening always. Be like, shut out. All right, let me look at this more. To maybe this is different from what I'm thinking. So let me look at this. And since I'm still, kind of an amateur at this, I am, I can't overlook stuff too much. I have to be able. I like to see everything, and I got to break it down in depth to make sure I'm not missing stuff. I try to look at as many different avenues as I can. And since again, I don't have a meteorology degree, even though I've taken, um, even though I took meteorology classes in college, I still don't, even though I've taken classes before, it's just still, it's not the same. A very limited amount. I say I took some. I didn't get a. It's not like I was close to getting a degree, to be clear. So, or I'm, it's definitely not enough. But yeah, I love this stuff and breaking it down. You think the Canadian is too far inland, says Priya, or is it a possible solution? It's a possible solution, but I believe it is probably just at least a little bit too far inland. I think the Canadian is the max far inland we can go at this point, at least for right now. That's what I think. I think the Canadian's about as far as we can go here. Yeah, my voice getting a little bit hoarse. I've been talking a lot today, so not just this, but you got to give the Canadian credit, man. It's been doing this for days now. The consistency you got to get. It was the first to hop on to that idea. It was the first, excuse me, to have that amplified of a setup. Look at that. That's 06C. That's the GFS. 12Z, OZ. It's 12Z yesterday, OZ tonight. You can see that it's very good consistency. Consistency doesn't always make you right, though. And then in behind it, man, get the way. I'm telling you, right here. Where does this come in? If this comes in further west, we wrap up. I-95 special. Yes, CMC and the Euro AI. Oh, we can look at that. I forgot to show you that. As we get closer, since the Euro AI is a lower resolution model, still it's not a high resolution model, as you can see clearly from the freaking 500 volt here, vorticity. Shit, look at that. It's not obviously it's not very clear, especially the farther you go out. Not too huge of a difference farther to go actually, but you can see here remarkable consistency. You can go North America zoomed out. Yes. Um, Look at that. Is that 5 runs? 4. Last 4 runs of the Euro AI. Not budging. It's another red flag that the AI model from the ECMWF Center. It's not the same, but similar. I'm not sure. It might be the data assimilation process. I'm not 100% sure, so I'd have to look at that. But no, not total. See that? This whole area, the swath here, of 0.4 to 0.6 inches of QPF here, and last run was even more. Look at 12Z. Look at 12Z was a nuke, man, of a freaking run. 18Z was a good amount less, and still is a great run. 06Z was actually so probably a little bit of a windshield wiper, hard to resolve in the shorter term, but still, that's one of the weakest run of the day for the Euro AI, and that's what that's a swath there of 5 to 10 inches on the Euro AI. You shouldn't look at the p-type maps for the Euro AI too. I've found the closer we've gotten that it's mainly more so for track and for Euro AI. So mainly more for that is what I've found so far. So like totals wise, it kind of struggles a little bit with. See how it smooths that out a little bit, like little tricky with that. So all right, I think that will yeah. So we'll obviously we're going. Hey, so tomorrow be on the lookout around 7 p.m. and I'll put it on X tomorrow, so you'll be able to see which channel to go live to. I'll put the link to their YouTube as well. Um, he's very nice. Very has some knowledge as well. Obviously, he's um, uh, just a very very passionate, and he's pretty awesome. So excited to work with him uh, tomorrow. Maybe bounce a few thoughts, but really I'll be able to focus on Northeast. So if you want maybe a preview before the stream of some of my thoughts, it'll be more so breaking down general. It'll probably be a little bit more layman's terms. So we're not quite as in depth, but I'll try to. I mean, he was like, "Hey, just do your thing, and just go, whatever makes you do, whatever makes whatever makes you special, I guess." He didn't say it like that, but uh, you know, go ahead. And so that's what we're going to be breaking it down tomorrow, and then we'll continue to go live again, probably 11ish, 11:30ish, probably again somewhere around that time frame. So be on the lookout. That's what we're going to be doing tomorrow. That's the game plan. In terms of overall, I think the GFS is the closest model that I would line my thoughts with. Maybe not that specifically evolution, but that would be the closest where my thoughts would align um, currently right now. So that's kind of where I sit at the moment. And yeah, we got more storms to track after too. More storms to track. We're not done yet. So we'll get a little bit clearer of a picture tomorrow. But really, it will be such a close. That TPV comes in, it will come in late. It will come in late too. So it will be a close call for that one potentially, or maybe it gets full and suppressed. We'll see. But yeah, I appreciate everybody coming in. Fantastic stream tonight. Over 1,000 people tuned in on X total, so that was fantastic. Love seeing that, and great job on YouTube as well. So fun times ahead.